I'm Bob Hoke. I've been at Sandy Spring teaching history for 35 years, and I am a product of the 60s. And I'm here tonight to talk about the year 1968, the year that things all came apart. 1968, if you're old enough to remember 1968, you probably don't remember 1968 for any number of reasons. So that's why I'm here tonight to help you. And if you weren't there, then I can sort of take you there during this presentation. It started with the Tet Offensive, the war in Vietnam. These are the people we were supporting in 1968, about to execute a prisoner. The Tet Offensive, as you know, brought down the Johnson administration. A young Austrian, Arnold Schwarzenegger, won the Mr. Universe pageant that year. He doesn't understand what it means to pick up women. He took it a little literally. He has since figured it out, unfortunately. Film, Space Odyssey. Is the computer HAL the father of Siri? I believe it is. It's a direct descendant from that. Planet of the Apes. You remember the first time you saw the film? There's been so many remakes, but that moment when you saw the Statue of Liberty, pivotal movement, I think, in film history. Romeo and Juliet. For my generation, there's only one Juliet, Olivia Hussey. With that, apologies to Claire Danes, but there's only one Juliet, and that was the one in 1968. Spring of 1968 in Czechoslovakia, in Prague, they attempted socialism with a human face. And what happened was they got Soviet tanks, followed by the Brezhnev Doctrine. So the great thaw was over when the tanks rolled in. Bobby Kennedy appeared to sort of lift our spirits, hopefully bring peace to Vietnam. The country was enormously excited. I worked in his Cumberland office in 1968 for his presidential campaign. He had just won the California primary, which would have guaranteed his nomination, when he was shot and killed by a Palestinian radical, Sirhan Sirhan, once again throwing the country into disarray and something of a depression. Dr. King was at the pinnacle of his influence and power in 1968. Trying to bring together forces from all over for civil rights for everyone, not just for African Americans. And then in April of 1968, while he was in Memphis, in an attempt to mediate a strike, he was shot and killed as well. And so between Prague Spring, the death of Kennedy, the death of King, things seemed to be somewhat hopeless. That summer, the Olympics, this iconic photograph of Tommy Smith and John Carlos raising their fists in a Black Power salute, for which they have been stripped of their Olympic medals. Richard Nixon, in an attempt to appear that he was human, a failed attempt, decided to have himself photographed with Elvis, thinking that might be a good thing as he approached the 1968 presidential campaign. Vice President Humphrey, the so-called happy warrior, will get the Democratic nomination after the death of Bobby Kennedy. Not a candidate that everybody wanted to get behind, unfortunately. The American Party, America's brown shirt, are going to nominate George Wallace to run as a third-party candidate in 1968, the former governor of Alabama, who will finish third. There will be riots at the Democratic Convention, with the whole world watching. The protesters will be dragged out of Lincoln Park and beaten in front of the cameras, delaying the convention. No one saw Humphrey's acceptance speech until after midnight. Musically, in 1968, Hey Jude was the #1 song. I'm sure all of you could break out into a chorus of Hey Jude. What the hell does it mean? Don't make it bad. Okay. The Rolling Stones, that year, their big hit was Sympathy for the Devil. I think that was a little clearer than the Beatles' Hey Jude at that particular point. To calm things down a little bit musically, Simon and Garfunkel are going to tell us to enjoy the sounds of silence, trying to tone down the angst that was happening during that time period. And who can forget the sweet harmonies that Art Garfunkel put with Paul Simon during this time period. And then, of course, Jimi Hendrix asked the question, are you experienced? What does that mean? I have no idea. But we all bought the album, and Hendrix became a symbol and an icon of the era. Thank you.